You can read a book many times to grasp its meaning, but an audience only gets one chance to listen to your speech. Madam Toastmaster, fellow members and guests. That's a line from the old Competent Communicator manual. It's an old reference book of Toastmasters, and the sentiment holds true. An audience only gets one chance to listen to your speech. So you need to help them to absorb that all-important meaning. And one way you do that is by being organized and having a logical structure to your speech. And what I want to do this evening is introduce a very simple template that you can apply to your speeches to bring a bit of structure to them. In fact, you can apply this to most forms of public speaking. So the starting point might seem obvious, but it's to pick a topic. In the workplace or college environments, and the topic will probably be picked for you. It's the project maybe that you're working on. So beyond that, the only thing I'd say is that when you're picking a topic, make sure you feel it's something the audience wants or needs to hear. Make sure it's something that you feel reasonably passionate about, and don't pick too broad a topic. Keep it reasonably focused. The next step then is to identify a purpose. And by a purpose, I mean, are you there to educate the audience in informative type talk? Are you there to entertain them like in an after dinner speech? Are you there to inspire them in a motivational talk that you might give to a football team, for example? Or are you there to persuade your audience to accept your ideas and to take a course of action? Most technical talks are like sales pitches. You're there to convince your audience, it might be the management team, for example, to accept your ideas and take a course of action. It doesn't mean there won't be an educational aspect to it. There obviously will be. And who knows, you might inspire them and entertain them along the way. But in the main, you've decided what your purpose is. The next step then is to identify a message. You can call it an aim, an objective, a central idea, but let's focus on calling it a message for the moment. The message should be clear and succinct and to the point that you can write it down in one sentence. If you can't write your message down in one sentence, you probably won't get it across to your audience in your allocated time. The analogy that's often used there is called the elevator analogy. And how that works is, if you can imagine you're in a room listening to a speaker, and when they're finished presenting, you walk out of that room, get into an elevator or a lift, descend a couple of floors and leave the building. In that short space of time, if somebody asks you in the elevator, what was the speech about? You should be able to tell them. And what you tell them is the message. If you're struggling to identify that message, then the speaker probably hasn't been clear enough. So now you have your message. What you want to do is you want to communicate that message across in a structured presentation that has an opening, a body, and a conclusion. So let's focus on the opening for the moment. The opening should be no more than 5 to 10% of the speech content. It's essentially there to introduce yourself, your credentials if necessary, your topic, and your message. The conclusion is, again, no more than 5 to 10% of your speech content. It's there to summarize your message, maybe highlight the main points. It's an opportunity to remind the audience of your message once again, that very, very important message. And you may have a call to action, challenge the audience to act on your ideas. But it's in the main part of the speech where you essentially deliver the material. And there are different structures to the main body of a speech. Some of the formal structures are like a chronological approach that might take a timeline. You might present a problem, then a solution, or a cause and an effect, or you can simply come up with your own format, or even tell a story to communicate that message. But remember, it needs an opening and a conclusion to put it into context for the audience. But there's one simple structure that you can apply to the main body of a speech when you're beginning to speech write. In fact, a lot of people do it anyway throughout their Toastmaster careers, and it's called the topical structure. And how the topical structure works is, if you think of all the ideas that you can think of to support your message, write them down and prioritize them and pick your top 3. And the reason why you pick 3 ideas to communicate your message across to your audience is, first of all, 3 ideas are about all you're going to have time to get across to your audience once you elaborate on them in your allocated time. 3 ideas are about all an audience is going to be able to absorb anyway. If you start adding in 4, 5, and 6 ideas, research has shown that people's retention rate falls off a bit of a cliff. And the third reason why you pick 3 ideas to communicate your message across to an audience is because there's a device in literature called the power of 3. And what it means is that things that are packaged in 3s are first of all easy to remember, second of all more inspirational, and even more humorous. Where we would see the triad, as it's often referred to in speech writing, for example, would be in Julius Caesar's Friends, Romans, and Countrymen, or Winston Churchill's Blood, Sweat, and Toil, or even Obama's Yes, We Can. In storytelling, you'll see it in the 3 Little Pigs, the 3 Wise Men, the 3 Musketeers. I know there was a 4th Musketeer, but obviously Alexander Dupont wanted to use the power of 3. So we have this opening, body, and conclusion. And this structure goes all the way back to Aristotle, who was a Greek philosopher, lived over 2,000 years ago. He said in the beginning of a speech, you tell them what it is you're going to talk about. In the middle, you tell them what it is you want them to know. And in the end, you tell them what you told them because there's to be no ambiguity. So the audience has an opportunity to take that important message away. If you follow that approach, opening, body, and conclusion, consider that the bones of the speech. Once you add in your stories, your creative writing, maybe in the form of rhetorical devices, and your humor, that's the flesh and blood, ladies and gentlemen, that will bring those bones alive. Madam Toastmaster.